people don't buy price, they buy payment. But when you have a melt up, they buy it based on its price and disregard the payment. Fundamentals went out the window.
Right. People don't actually take the time to actually figure that out.
Right. Because why? Why would you think that?
Because scared of missing out.
Have you ever heard the thing, past performance does not guarantee future results?
Yep.
Okay. And what they're looking at from past performance was that rates would eventually come back down. So don't worry about it. Go ahead and buy that house right now because rates are at an all-time high, and it's okay because in a year or two from now, you can refinance. Eventually, people start coming to their senses. And the smart money is the first one where they start saying, do I really want to do this? Because a lot of this stuff that happens comes from the wealth effect.
What is that? What is the wealth effect?
So the wealth effect is when individuals feel very comfortable on their living standards, they start doing a little YOLO, right? They're like, man, I got $300,000 in equity in my house. I just cashed out, bought myself a new car. Life is good. It's never going to end, right? Inflation starts kicking in. That's one expense. That's one tax. Interest rates start to rise, especially on your credit card bills and debts.
Right.
That's another tax. You have student loan debt, which is a lot right now.
Right.
That were deferred for how many years?
Wow.
A while. And it's not like it's like 10,000. It's like 50 to 150,000. Right. That's now starting to kick in. That's another tax.
Yeah.
Oh, your job's slowing down. No more overtime.
Get laid off or something. Yeah.
Oh, it's slowing down. That's another tax. All that financial stress. Wife still wants to live the same lifestyle she was living before. What are you doing? What's going on? Why are we going on vacation? Blah, blah, blah. Stress, fight. It's just a slow moving train wreck. That's all it is.
Right.
But every market is on a different train wreck cycle. Different. They're all different on different timelines.
Yeah. So I guess like if you were in one of those market in that cycle, in that train wreck cycle, say like based on that information, you already figure it out that you are in one. What can you do to,
That's a great question.
To make your decision more sound. I
guess. I have a friend of mine. He owns a real estate coaching company. We had this conversation. I've been in the business over 20 years as well. And one of the canaries in the coal mines for real estate is real estate coaching. Because if realtors aren't doing the same amount of transactions, because there's few transactions to go around, what's the first thing they're going to want to do when the market starts to shift?
Cut costs.
They're going to start cutting costs.
Yeah.
Who's the first people that start cutting costs?
Coaches, yeah.
They start cutting the coaches and they start cutting marketing dollars.
Right.
Some guys are smart. They're going to go to you and they're going to double down on marketing.
Right.
Like, hey, wait a minute. I need to double down because my business is slowing down. So I need to get double the oars and get my things in the boat, and I need to paddle harder.
Right.
That's
Some
me.
people do that, yeah.
That's me. I recognize that. Not everyone's like that.
True.
They start cutting the things that were keeping them afloat, which is their exposure, building and growing their business and their brand, and growing in their knowledge and mindset. And they start cutting back on that coaching expense. So when I put him in his house, he paid, I want to say like $1.5 million or 1.6 mil. House is now worth about $3 million. And we started having this discussion beginning of the year. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to buy a house and I'm going to probably pay 1.1. I'm like, really? He's like, dude, I got so much equity in this place. I've seen this before. My business is slowing down like crazy. We're going to downsize. And at least if I downsize to $1 million property, and if it happens to go down 10, 15%, that's only 150,000 off my acquisition price. But if I go down 10, 15% on 3 million, you're talking like huge. $500,000 in my equity.
Right.
My debt load's still the same. So I'd rather do that now and pocket some of that cash now because I'm already feeling it.
It's like to weather the storm.
Yeah.
You want to pocket the cash so that stay liquid,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've already had this conversation a year ago with the previous owners of my previous mortgage company. They had been in the business since like 1983. And as the market conditions started to shift, They're like, oh, you know who are the first people to feel it? The lenders. Yeah. Well, now mortgage applications for some companies like Wells Fargo is down like 90%. Wow. I'm still blessed. I'm still really busy. I still work with a lot of agents. I still do construction and renovation and doing a lot more things that are in the community to keep me still afloat. A lot of spinning the wheels, right?
Right.
But that's not normal. That's not normal. Knowing that, and a good friend of mine back in 2020 when COVID hit, we doubled down on our marketing and online marketing. Mm-hmm. When everybody else was locked in their houses, we did more volume. But we had the conversation. Remember when the meltdown happened in 08, 09, and we were watching every mortgage company, and we were in the drama watching everybody implode? How about instead of being in that, we doubled down on our business model. We learn a new way of lead generation, and let's just charge this hard. Because if we do that, it's like driving on the freeway with no cars on it.
No cars. You have the whole lane.
You have the whole lane.
Yeah.
And so he agrees, like, yeah, and he's been in the business the same time I have. Thank God. Fast forward, going into this next year cycle, we have a new election cycle. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. We have a lot of new taxes that are coming on to the public. So the Fed's got to pay for all these social programs, right? Plus the uncertainty with who's going to become president or the Senate or whatever.
Yep.
People don't like making major moves when you have those types of things. We've seen it over the years in these cycles. So we do have more shift to go on. But like I said, this is a melt-up cycle. What's keeping the prices, especially in San Diego, up is that too few of homes on the market. That too few of homes is now the survival of the fittest. We're climbing to the top of the mountain.
Right.
But as soon as the buyer pool continues to thin and thin and thin, eventually you're going to cross a point.
Then no one's going to buy.
That buying is like, it's crazy.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. People come to their senses eventually.
That's where people coming to their senses.
Eventually. Right? I still have friends right now that are property. I just talked to a commercial lady right now, and she's like, you know what? It makes more sense for me to rent right now. Why? Because she's like, I feel like there's more downside than there is upside.
Yeah. It's true.
Sometimes you want to take your chips off the table.
Mm-hmm. Just keep the cash.
Just keep the cash.
Yeah.
But unless you've physically experienced some of these market cycles, when do you know to take the chips off the table?
You don't. If you don't have any reference points.
Well, if you stay in the weeds, you'll never see it. Mm-hmm. If you surround yourself with a lot of these people that are trying to do these investment strategies, coming up with fancy ways to continue to invest. House hacking is kind of one of those. It's a dual-edged sword. House hacking.
Talk to me about that.
So house hacking.
How is house hacking a dual-edged sword? Like
because it affords. Okay, so let's do this. House hacking, Airbnb.
That's a hot topic right now.
Yeah. What else? Fancy financing.
Okay. Like, is that like what you mean? Creative
financing,
seller financing, all that stuff.
And I'll explain this, and it'll make sense.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, so the first thing, reality, you have a price of a home, median price, in your general family that can afford that payment. In an ideal market, 2012, when the prices were super depressed, we were I want to say we were up to 64%. 64% of the households in San Diego could have afforded to buy a home. 64%. 50 is ideal. But because real estate was such a bad word at the time, people losing their houses, all that kind of stuff, like, buying real estate.
It's like scary.
It's a bad thing. Like yeah. So all these bad stories, so nobody wanted to buy it. It's like a PE ratio. Right? Stock goes down really cheap. I'm not sure. Well, because it drops so much. Dude, it's a bargain at where it's at. If you buy it and it cash flows in your rent, You're good.
Yeah.
You're not banking on equity.
Right.
Just the rate of return on your cash flow makes total sense. It's a no-brainer. Cash on cash return.
Right.
Okay. when you start buying investment properties based on Airbnb cash flow and not basic rent, it forces that price of that value out of the market scope. Now, one of the things people will say is, well, things are different now. Things are different now. It's not that this has never happened before. There was a time in the mid 1800s when the Dutch were so wealthy that a bushel of tulips was worth the value of a home. Think about that. For a moment in time, a bushel of flowers was worth the value of a home.
That's crazy.
That's mass psychosis. NFTs, mass psychosis. So when you start making things out of scope to continue to maintain that price point, where you start saying, well, I really can't afford that $650,000 house, but if I rent 2 rooms out
to Airbnb
and I Airbnb it and I live in the garage,
right,
it'll pay for itself. I'll make the money on the equity.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not natural. You're forcing the value. Now, if you did that, hindsight for me, 2012, had I bought houses and compartmentalized the houses where I rented it out per room at that time, oh my God, I couldn't even tell you what life would be like. But I wasn't thinking about forcing the value. One of the beautiful things about a difficult market is it makes you think out of the box on how to maximize revenue. It forces you to think that way. So when you're Airbnb-ing it and you see, wow, this is so much more potential, or adding ADUs to a property, oh, there's so much more potential, I can make these numbers make sense because I'm forcing value. But at a certain point, if everyone's forcing value and you have a flood of Airbnbs, what happens?
It's not going to be that valuable. There's
a certain point where Airbnb, like now, you have a flood of Airbnb investors and they got vacancy rates of 50% in some cases.
That's true.
You see what I'm saying now?
Yeah.
So that had nothing to do with the price of real estate. That had to do with the flood of Airbnbs on the market. You compound that with fancy financing. You wouldn't qualify otherwise on basic tax returns. Don't worry about it. Give me 12 months bank statements. Hell, you got a 720 FICO score. Let's do a no ratio. You got 20% down. You're all good. You see what I'm saying? So now you're playing with funny numbers to make the payment. Oh, interest only. Dude, why do you have taxes and insurance included with your payment? Pay those separate. When you get your tax refund, that's when you'll pay them. If not, every month you're going to be $300,000-$400,000 negative. But if you separate your taxes and your insurance, dude, you can make that payment. And you Airbnb it, winning.
You're making it make sense, but like, based on alchemy. Not reality.
Alchemy. Yeah. It's alchemy.
Interesting. Yeah.
Crazy, right? When you take a step back and I'm explaining some of the tools that people are doing today, and then you question why the prices are what they are, that's a melt up. That's not a normal market.
Damn. Spin fire right now.
Does that make sense now?
That makes sense.
But how do you know? If we use the analogy of the pot of water with the frog in it, right?
Right.
And you and I are in the pot, San Diego pot, we'll call it.
Right.
And the water temperature's been slowly rising. My parents come down from Northern California.
Right.
They see the prices in San Diego and they're like, God damn, it's the same price here as it is in San Jose. Why do they think they said that?
Because they have a reference of San Jose.
Because their pot was a lot colder.
Yeah.
And when they jumped into our pot and they saw how hot it was, they were like, dude, you guys are tripping. Don't you see?
Yeah.
My dad's looking at the gas. You guys are paying $6 here?
Yeah.
By the way, what's the average wage in the Silicon Valley?
$100K, $120.
A lot more than San Diego.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. San Diego's like what, 80?
86 or something like
85, 86, yeah.
Call it 90.
But we have the same price as it is in San Francisco.
Something's got to give. Now, people will make every excuse. We got the sunshine tax.
Sure.
Oh, you got the sunshine tax. Okay.
You don't get the sunshine income, you know what I mean?
It's like, I can't enjoy it at the beach, bro. You know, it's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
right?
That's crazy.
So when reality starts to settle in, that's all I'm saying. So,
Right.
and each of these markets are very different. If you're looking at, and again, this is for reference. So timeline wise,
Yeah.
if you're an entry level buyer moving into the market today, it can feel very scary because at the bottom of the pyramid, you have a lot more people to compete with for that entry level home. Sucks.
Right.
If you're buying something for $4 million right now,
Nobody's buying.
air's super thin, bro. My guys are dropping prices like 10, 15, 20%
Damn.
at the 4 million mark.
Yeah.
Now, unless that's your sphere, you're not going to know it.
Yeah.
Smart money is smart money for a reason.
Right. That's
And
why this one's quiet.
That's why that's different, right?
Yeah.
And if you see your commercial property getting devalued by 20, 30%, the building you have a couple $1 million, few $1 million invested in, because those rates are now adjusting and you're not getting the kind of cash flow you were in that strip mall, which is typically wealthy people putting their money in commercial.
Mm-hmm.
If their wealth is starting to decrease at that high level,
Yeah.
eventually it starts moving down to the bottom level. But the only way that's going to ever happen is by having unemployment shift. So right now I was joking with a guy because he was trying to justify to me why San Diego is such a great buy, especially downtown with the campus going in there with the high tech. Totally get it. I agree. I'm like, yeah, long term, bro. Awesome. However, how's Qualcomm doing right now? He's like, dude, they're laying off a grip. I'm like, isn't that kind of counterintuitive? You're looking over here for a tech center to go in and you're saying how it's going to like change the market, but yet currently in the tech market, they're like laying off or they're not even hiring.
Right. They're like on pause.
They're on pause.
Freezing it up. Yep.
And the majority of tech markets use cheap money to grow their business models. And when rates go up, the first ones to get hit are the tech markets because they have the majority of it financed. Right? The Facebook, Instagrams, Meta, all that, Twitters, all it's all bloated because they're using really inexpensive, cheap money. If you look at Silicon Valley, that's where a lot of that money comes from, cheap. And as soon as the rates started going up, our revenue is not as strong as it was because our debt servicing just went higher. Mm-hmm. We got to start slowing down. We got to start laying off. That layoff cycle is what you saw in the Bay Area. That tech market layoff starting to happen because rates went up. So not every market's exactly the same. Right. San Diego is a little bit different in a sense where we do have a much more diverse economic stability. We have a lot of military. We have a lot of biotech. We have a lot of educational systems. We have a lot of travel and leisure, right? So it's much more spread.
Yeah.
But if we were to ever have a federal sequester of budgets to the military, imagine Border Patrol, Customs, the Navy, the Marines, any federal agency. We have a lot of that. Mm-hmm. That would affect our market.
That would, yeah. So interesting. Yeah.
Right? So these market cycles, it's also not just about the local economics. It's just a slow moving train wreck. That's all it is.
Right.
But every market is on a different train wreck cycle. Different. They're all different on different timelines.
Yeah. So I guess like if you were in one of those market in that cycle, in that train wreck cycle, say like based on that information, you already figure it out that you are in one. What can you do?
Remember when the meltdown happened in 08, 09, and we were watching every mortgage company and we were in the drama watching everybody implode? How about instead of being in that, we double down on our business model, we learn a new way of lead generation, and let's just charge this hard. Because if we do that, it's like driving on the freeway with no cars on. This is a melt-up cycle. What's keeping the prices, especially in San Diego, up is that too few of homes on the market. That too few of homes is now the survival of the fittest. We're climbing to the top of the mountain.
Right.
But as soon as the buyer pool continues to thin and thin and thin, eventually you're going to cross a point
that no one's going to buy.
That buying is like, it's crazy.